I don't know whether energy relations are more significant than other stumbling blocks that have come up in the relations between Turkey and the EU, particularly after Turkey's official candidacy and the beginning of negotiations. One problem has been, of course, the the membership of Cyprus and Turkey's non-recognition of Cyprus Nicosia government representing the whole of Cyprus. That has led to an impasse in the sense that the influence of Cyprus has been there to block certain negotiation of certain chapters. Among those chapters is the energy chapter. Now, that is one major stumbling block of a situation where the EU considers Cyprus a member, and at the same time, Turkey considers the government there not representing the whole of the island. A direct effect, one of the direct effects of this has been the blocking of the energy chapter. Number two, a little more complication will come out of that, is the fact that right now there have been gas discoveries in the waters around Cyprus, and that I expect to be a further complication. Turkey has reacted to this, and that reaction is likely to at least reinforce the current tensions on this. Let me hasten to add, however, I focused on one issue that is basically related to a major tension between Turkey's accession negotiations and the EU response to that. But apart from that, energy is not a problem or a cause of friction as such between the EU and Turkey. Turkey can be a transit state to the extent that it can transit the available gas, and there does not seem to be any problem whatsoever. Well, in a way, I have questioned, and I still will question the term Arab Spring. Spring refers to a renewal, a rebirth, a renaissance, whereas ever since the uprisings in Tunisia, followed by uprisings in other Middle East and North Africa countries, there has not been a expected or anticipated development towards greater stability, greater democracy, and indeed greater respect for human rights, particularly women's participation in the social and political sphere. That, I think, we're being candidesquely optimistic about the results, or at least short-term results, of such uprisings. Uprisings and revolutions often do not immediately lead to a betterment, but there is usually a period of chaos, such as was experienced, for example, after the French Revolution. So that is not a surprise. Now, in all this turmoil, what is and what can be expected of Turkey as a stabilizing factor? Well, there I think the expectations have been too high for Turkey to be able to act on something that defies outside intervention or influence towards betterment. I don't think the influence of the United States, I don't think the influence of France or any other European power has really changed or rechanneled the course of events. Egypt, the example of Egypt very clearly shows this now. There is a tense and split society which is in fact divided more and more along ideological lines. Under these circumstances, I think it is better to talk about challenges facing Turkey than expectations of what Turkey can do. Challenges facing Turkey are several. One is that Turkey, of course, had very good commercial relations, for example, very long time, for example, with Libya, where major construction was undertaken since the 80s. It was one of the first openings of the Turkish contracting sector for international markets. And this is now, the government and the companies are trying to revive this. Turkey suffered a setback. Obviously it did in a situation like the Libyan revolution. The situation with Egypt again shows a problem in the sense that rather than Turkey becoming so much as a role model for stability for Egypt, it is also put in a position by the Egyptian leader now, Mr. Morsi, of a competitor, because Egypt for a long time wanted to be the leader of the Arab world, and Egypt continues to claim that. So that diminishes, of course, Turkey's influence in that. The situation with Syria, of course, has become more tense, and both in the border areas, it has become a security issue. It has become an issue where the communities along the border are destabilized by the influx of refugees, as well as the threat of fighting splitting into Turkey. So, in fact, that again has produced a challenge for Turkey to the extent that Turkey has asked NATO to supply Patriot missiles for its own defense. Let me add one thing, that Turkey can, of course, play a role, as most European countries are trying to play a role, on the one hand to establish or re-establish stability and stop the fighting, and somehow influence the Arab countries into a more democratic constitutional regime, for them to adopt the principles of democracy and establish constitutions. Turkey can be a part of this, but any influence that Turkey can have would be augmented to the extent that Turkey cooperates with both the European and NATO allies. The problem is too big for any country to go at it alone.